Boom! And we're live. What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Max Van Auken Podcast. If you're listening to it via podcast on any podcast platform or YouTube, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Just had John Fitch on. What an amazing podcast that was. Just talking about so many things, even outside of the octagon. And so I appreciate it, guys. You can find me on any social media platform, Max Van Auken on Instagram, Twitter. Haven't really been using Facebook as much, but there's a lot of things I want to get into as far as the sports world, right? So I go ways, so many sports topics, so many things to get into. And I wanted to start off with something. So I talked about UFC 241 with John Fitch, right? Former UFC fighter, professional fighter for Bellator, just one of the greatest welterweights of all time. And I wanted to acknowledge Nate Diaz, and I got to dive into it a little bit with him, but Nate Diaz put on just a spectacular performance, just like I thought he would. Stipe upset Daniel Cormier, and he's arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. And it made me realize something, and I've said it before, but now I really want to dive more into it. And I guess we'll get right into the first thing here. Okay, so there's grinders and there's talent. Grinders and talent, right? They're two different things. Do you grind? Are you the one that's going to clock in early, stay late? Are you a grinder? Do you just outwork the room? Are you a grinder? Or are you just very talented, where you have more talent than the other person, but you're not going to put in the work as much? I'll take the grinder over talent any day of the week. And not saying that a lot of talented people don't work hard, because there are talented people who work hard. There's talented people who lose. Doesn't mean you're going to be undefeated no matter what you do, even if you're talented and work hard. But normally I will take the grinder over the guy or woman who's just talented. So in this example, it's Nate Diaz versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. Again, not saying Anthony Pettis doesn't work hard, but Nate Diaz is a grinder, absolute grinder. And it made me realize something. I know what I'm getting with a grinder. Nate Diaz will come to fight. He has a great chin. He has stamina for days. For days, he's going to go forward. He's going to pepper you. Non-stop action moving forward, right? Great jiu-jitsu. I know what I'm getting. I'm not getting jumping off the cage flying kick with Nate Diaz. I'm not getting one-punch knockout power. I'm not getting incredible head movement. I'm not getting incredible athleticism. He's not the most talented guy in the world, but he's a grinder. And what did he do against Anthony Showtime Pettis, who was more talented than Nate Diaz? He grinded him. He outworked him and put on a clinic. Absolutely put on a clinic. Made Anthony Showtime Pettis feel exhausted. And then he kept putting his foot on the gas, kept testing Anthony Showtime Pettis, and really beat him on the feet. And that's not even his strength. His ground game is what's really the strongest point in Nate Diaz's game. He has very underrated boxing, but nobody wants to go on the ground with Nate Diaz, and he outstriked Anthony Showtime Pettis, who's an elite of the elite striker. Stipe. As much as people think Stipe, like Daniel Cormier is a grinder. I was wrong about that fight. Stipe Miocic is a grinder. He's a firefighter on the weekends as the UFC heavyweight champion. He is a grinder, and he won in the fourth round. Just grinded, just willed his way in. After losing the first 2-3 rounds, he wins in the fourth round. So it got me to thinking, and I made a list. And I like just a very short and simple list. There's grinders compared to talented but inconsistent. I put Anthony Pettis as talented but inconsistent sometimes. I don't know what I'm getting with Showtime Pettis. Sometimes he knocks out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Other times I feel like I'm not getting the best Anthony Showtime Pettis. Conor McGregor, unfortunately, one of the best of all time. Just because you're talented and not a grinder doesn't necessarily mean you're not crazy successful. But Conor McGregor, I don't know what I'm getting with him anymore. I don't. And I don't know if he can last past the third round. He looks exhausted every time. I know boxing's different, but Floyd Mayweather Jr., how he looked against Nate Diaz, how he looked against Khabib. I don't think he's a grinder as much anymore. I think he was a grinder on his come up, and he was just fighting paycheck to paycheck. And once he got that success, I think he lost that grinder mentality because he has millions in the bank. There's not that sense of urgency anymore. I also put Cam Newton, talented but inconsistent. He can throw the long ball. He can run. But I don't know what I'm getting game in and game out with Cam Newton all the time. Antonio Brown, look what's going on with him. Very talented, arguably the best wide receiver in the league. But right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are laughing and they're thankful that they moved on from this. Very talented. Like I said, probably the most talented wide receiver in the league right now, Antonio Brown. And I have Odell Beckham Jr. on this list. Very outgoing. I mean, the frostbite on the feet, that's something. It was an accident. It's something. You have the situation in Pittsburgh. You have the situation with the helmet. He wasn't showing up to practices. Odell Beckham Jr. He has these situations. He's very outgoing. The boat. You have these guys who are just very talented. Like I said, extremely talented. More talented than pretty much anyone else. But that doesn't get, I will still take the grinder over the talented. I have like Kyle Lowry, another talented guy. He's a good dude, great guy. But I feel like he's very inconsistent on the court. Some games he's an all-star, some games he has 0 points. And DeMarcus Cousins, who's an all-star on his best nights, but he's inconsistent. His attitude, it fluctuates. And then I can name these consistent guys, like I just said, the Nate Diaz, the Tony Fergusons, the Tom Bradys, the LeBron James, the Floyd Mayweathers, the guys that I know night in and night out what I'm getting. LeBron James has the most consecutive games of 10-plus points. Is he talented? Hell yes, but he's a grinder. Night in, night out. 17 years, best player in the world. I know what I'm getting. Floyd Mayweather, 50-0. Say what you want about Floyd. Say what you want about his money. 50-0. He grinds. You don't get 50-0 just off pure talent. You grind for that. Tom Brady. Where was he drafted? Not the first round, not the second round, not the third round. Was it the 6th round, 4th round, 6th round? Grinder. Absolute grinder. Talented, but grinder. And look what he's accomplished. I will take a grinder over a talented prospect, over a talented athlete, over a talented person in general. I'll always take the grinder because I know what I'm getting with that person day in and day out. So then I sat back and I thought about, what if I mix the two? What if I take somebody who's very talented and you make them a grinder? There's a lot of people out there who are talented and grinders, right? I'm like, okay, who are the biggest grinders in sports and are extremely talented? What is that recipe form? And I'm like, okay, let me look at this list. And like I said, just going off the top of my head, I'm like, you know what? This list is actually pretty incredible. All right, so my list I'm combining the grind mentality and I'm combining it with very talented. I get LeBron James. I get Tiger Woods. I get Floyd Mayweather Jr. I get Serena Williams. I get George St. Pierre. I'm talking about, these are all-timers. And now you're like, oh, you're just naming the best of the best. I am. But why are they the best of the best? Why are they the best of the best? You can argue Carmelo Anthony was just as talented as LeBron James. But Carmelo Anthony was not the grinder of LeBron James. LeBron James in year 17 is in the gym at 3 in the morning. Just check his Instagram story. It's phenomenal. He's a grinder. Like I said, Tom Brady. He's 42 years old, still playing in the NFL. That's not supposed to happen. He takes great care of his body. I think he has like a hyperbolic chamber in his house. He sleeps in kale pajamas. He literally eats, sleeps, and breathes NFL football. That's just all he does. Watches tape all day. His diet, everything he does is dedicated and predicated to specifically football. He has every reason in the world to take his foot off the brake. But he has this chip on his shoulder that was formed because he was doubted for a very long time. He was drafted very late. He wasn't the fastest. He had an embarrassing NFL draft combine. He has this chip on his shoulder, that grind mentality. And you combined it with talent. And you have the all-time legends. All-time legends. Like I said, Floyd Mayweather is 50-0. He will wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and jog. And just work out. 50-0. He worked harder than everybody. Incredibly talented. Incredibly fast. So you combine that combination and you have all-time legends. I know you guys know the Tiger Woods story. I know that you know how hard he worked since he was a kid. His dad just made him work extremely hard with golfing. right? He just won. Now, of course, injuries, and he has his off the course issues. I'm not saying he's a perfect human being, but what I'm saying is he's extremely talented, but one of the hardest workers, and that's why he's the greatest golfer. Serena Williams, we know her story. Extremely hard worker, but very talented. And that's when you get these combinations of legends. Georges St. Pierre, everyone just thinks he's insanely talented. But if you go back in his MMA career, you get an athlete who was a great striker, and he got exposed. He got exposed against Matt Hughes. Hey, got him to the ground, tapped him out. He then completely changed his game to wrestling. And just transformed his whole MMA game. And all of a sudden, he became the best wrestler in mixed martial arts. Combined with his striking, his unbelievable conditioning, and the way he studied his opponent and his game plans going into each and every fight, made sure he put himself in the position to be always in the comfortable position. He exposed at what his opponents were weak at and where he was strong at. He game planned for it. You saw it every time, ever since that Matt Hughes fight, specifically the Matt Serra fight, where he underestimated Matt Serra, got clipped, one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. He then looked at himself in the mirror, transformed his game, and ever since then, never lost. I'll say that again, he never lost since that Matt Serra fight. That's incredible. And I think we as in the media, as in fans, we fall in love with the highly talented, but sometimes I feel like those that are grinders just fly under the radar. And not everybody's Tom Brady, not everybody's LeBron James. Those are once in a lifetime type of people. We may never see another couple of people like that ever again. But my point is, in sports, I prefer the guy that I know what I'm getting night in and night out. The woman I know what I'm getting night in and night out. That grinder. That person that just shows up and does what they have to do. That's exactly what Nate Diaz is. That's exactly what Daniel Cormier is. With these legends, like I just said, that's what they are. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what these people can do when you see the non-headache issues. Non-headache issues. But that's my rant. That's my rant to start off this podcast. Like I said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I want to shift gears to Dwight Howard. I haven't said that in a while. I want to shift gears to Dwight Howard. So the Lakers, I've compared them to the 2008 Boston Celtics. And at first I got pushback, and actually I just tweeted back out at Kendrick Perkins, and he said the same thing. He was like, hey, Dudley is a great role player to go with LeBron James. Reminds me of the 2008 Boston Celtics. I'm like, hey, that's exactly what I was saying like months ago. And the reason why I specifically said that about the Lakers is you just look at the overall roster, and it's very similar to the Boston Celtics in the situation where they didn't make the playoffs before, and they're favorites to win the title. The last team to do that in modern era is the Boston Celtics in 2008. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen. So there's very similar, a lot of similarities with the two teams. And now, since DeMarcus Cousins tore his ACL, the Lakers are in need of a center position. I'm in the lane of Anthony Davis play the 5. It's 2019 basketball. You can play the 5. It's perfectly fine. But he doesn't want to play the center position. And like I said, I would still go with Anthony Davis at the 5. I don't think he needs to be the 4. And you still have JaVale McGee. But they do need another big just to fill that spot. Injuries, you never know. Load management. So there's this thing with Dwight Howard. And as in this thing, I mean interest on both parties. The Lakers want to work out Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard has expressed interest for playing with the Lakers. Dwight Howard went from being a legend for the Orlando Magic, which he was, Defensive Player of the Year, the best center in the league, MVP candidate, went to the finals, all-time high. He goes to the Lakers, complete dumpster fire, does not work. Ever since then, he's been riddled with injuries, bouncing from team to team, and now it's like no team wants him because he's cancerous to the locker room. He's been egotistical. A lot of players say he doesn't take it seriously. So he went from being the best of the best to, I don't think he is a good piece for our team. Even as a role player, forget about star player, right? And it's 2019, everyone shoots threes. Dwight Howard is not for this era. But this is where I'm going to push back for the most part against that general concept of Dwight Howard wouldn't be a good fit. Dwight Howard's never had a LeBron James, an Anthony Davis on his team. When you have a locker room that is able to deal with egos, Dwight Howard won't be an issue. And if he is, both parties move on. Like the Houston Rockets did with Carmelo Anthony, both parties move on. So it's a low risk. And what is the upside? What is Dwight Howard's upside? An energetic role player. Pick and roll. Get rebounds. Block shots. Use your athleticism. If Dwight Howard's put in a system in an environment where the expectations are realistic, I think you can get value off Dwight Howard. I certainly think you can get value off Dwight Howard. It's not like he can't play. The guy can still play basketball. But you have to understand the environment that he's in. When he was with the Washington Wizards, it's a chaotic franchise, right? The owner doesn't even know what they're doing. So you have a situation where you put somebody who, quote unquote, can be cancerous to the locker room in a chaotic environment, and you're expecting good results, and that's just not realistic. You put him in an environment, believe it or not, the Lakers is a more stable organization than the Wizards, because I know the Lakers are always in the headlines, but you have a guy like LeBron James who Dwight Howard will respect. The whole league looks at LeBron like a Michael Jordan. He's a legend, he's a veteran, he's a champion, arguably the greatest of all time. When you get a guy like that, and when you're on a team where you're playing for a spot, players tend to have more perspective and self-awareness. So you're putting him into a different environment that's not as chaotic, and you have realistic expectations, then you can actually get value for Dwight Howard. I don't understand the confusion with this. The Lakers wouldn't be signing Dwight Howard to expect him to be an all-star. You're never going to get that. That's not realistic. Pump the brakes. What's realistic is you're getting a center who can be an energetic role player, to take minutes off Anthony Davis, to take minutes off JaVale McGee. And if that is your expectations, then you'll get value for that contract. You'll get value off this pickup, by acquiring Dwight Howard. That's value. That's something that you need. And I think that's realistic. Worst case scenario, Dwight Howard's an even bigger cancer to the locker room than I even think. And both parties move on. The Lakers move on. They cut him. Dwight Howard moves on. It doesn't work. He's not happy there. What is the worst case scenario? He's better than Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah, I don't think, fits this Lakers roster. You need an athletic big, pick and roll, defend. You're not asking him to score 20 points a game. Heck, you're not asking him to score 15 points a game. You're asking him to get a couple buckets off easy lobs and play some defense and rebound. Dwight Howard can do that. He didn't. Is he as athletic as he was in Orlando? Absolutely not. But he still has value if used in the right system, in the right environment. So the Lakers should 100% sign Dwight Howard. 100%. There's really nothing you can lose. As soon as he's a headache and he doesn't understand and you realize he has no self-awareness, both parties move on. Done. Boom. Then you reevaluate the market. But for what you can get with him, and I think he would have self-awareness because of the people he's surrounded with realistic expectations, you can seriously get value for Dwight Howard. You can get value with Dwight Howard. And like I said, there was like this new poll that came out where LeBron James amongst the rookies is the favorite, like 28%. And that's my whole point with this. Like I said, the way the league views LeBron James is completely different than any other player. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a LeBron guy, but when you have somebody of LeBron's stature, you can take someone who has ego, a la Lance Stevenson, who was his rival, and put him in that locker room, and he'll respect LeBron James just because of what he's done and how he impacts the game. You can't do that with everybody else. You put Dwight Howard next to John Wall, that's where you get the cancerous, quote-unquote, type of guy with Dwight Howard to the locker room. You put him next to a LeBron James, I would expect he won't have that same effect because he knows his role. He has self-awareness. And like I said, if he doesn't, worst case scenario, both parties, you move on. Both parties, you move on. The last list I want to get to, it's really interesting here too. So I'm a huge 2K guy. I love 2K, NBA 2K. 2K20 is coming out, and I just went on a whole rant about LeBron. Him and Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, they're in the game, And it reminded me of the impact LeBron has on the game of basketball. Just from player mobility, the player empowerment, the championships, the 8 straight finals, the TV ratings, the more than an athlete, the opening up the schools, going back and forth with the president, whether you agree with it or not. LeBron James, his impact on the game of basketball is greater than anything I've ever seen with an athlete. It is absolutely, like I said, you can argue all day on who the greatest of all time is. A lot of people will say Michael Jordan. I believe LeBron, but if you say Michael Jordan, we're not going to get anywhere with the conversation, because if you're a Michael Jordan lover, there's no convincing you. And you may be right. Most people would side with Michael Jordan. And he's Michael Jordan, I understand. But as far as the impact on the game of basketball, what LeBron James has been able to do is unprecedented, and it's remarkable. The way and in case you don't know, LeBron James has created player mobility where bouncing from team to team is because LeBron James has done that. He's created that. Where if the player is now in control of where he wants to go and be happy and where he wants to play for. What team does he want to play for? Player empowerment. That has been created by LeBron James. We saw Kevin Durant follow. And now when you look, NBA free agency is getting bigger and bigger every summer because everybody's moving. That is a domino effect from LeBron James. What he's done off the court to show that you can be more than an athlete. His businesses are incredible. The shop, like everything he's done has been remarkable. Now, I've been critical of him because I think it affected his game on the court last year. So I think it was too much. But my point is, he's had a bigger game on the game of basketball, more of an impact on the game of basketball than anyone I could possibly remember. So I ended up creating a list. And who's impacted the game the most, the game of basketball? Number 1 is LeBron James. And for all the reasons I just listed. Number 2, you could say, is Michael Jordan. Just because everyone wears Jordans. The icon, everyone thinks he's the GOAT. What he's done for the TV ratings, the 6 championships, 2 3-peats, the greatest player of all time, everybody wants to be like Mike. Jumping from the free throw line, he is one of the biggest, if not the biggest athlete of all time. Jordan is the epitome of being the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT. And like I said, I can think LeBron. You ask someone on the street, most people say Jordan. Jordan has impacted the game of basketball like no other as well. And that's why he's on this list at number 2. Number 3, believe it or not, people may not like this. It's hard. I don't want to put it in order, but you kind of have to. I would have to go with Steph Curry. Now, hear me out on this, because my 4 is really good as well. But what Steph Curry has done for the game of basketball is he's made everyone shoot threes. This conversation I just had with you with Dwight Howard about he may not be a fit for a team because he can't shoot threes is because of Steph Curry. The way he's revolutionized the game of basketball is simply because Steph Curry has done that. He has taken the 3-point shot and has made it a priority and a necessity for every single team to follow. If you can't shoot a 3, you don't belong on the basketball court. He's eliminated the center positions. Kids now are shooting threes because they're relatable. Not everyone's 6'8" like LeBron and can jump out of the gym. If you can learn how to shoot, you have a spot on a team. Steph Curry has changed the game forever. My number 4 was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. When the TV ratings were down, the NBA wasn't at a good point, they revived the NBA. That rivalry is probably the greatest rivalry in all sports. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Lakers, Celtics, all the way to college to the NBA. And what they did was bring everybody together and watch the game of basketball. So that impact alone is why they're on my list. And the Lakers-Celtics rivalry is the greatest rivalry in basketball. And lastly, it's a toss-up between, you got the Bill Russell 11 championships and what he stood for. You also have Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points in the domination. But I'm going to put Kareem on there, just off pure dominance and the rule changes because of him. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has the skyhook. He has all points, the most points scored in a career. Literally, rules changed because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He impacted the game like no other as well. So when I think of the greatest impacts, now that's not the greatest players, even though they are the greatest players, that's just the greatest impact on the game of basketball. And like I said, you can really argue the fifth spot. There's a lot of people who I'm leaving off, a lot of people that I would put on if it was a top 10 list. But those group of people and the impact they have on the game of basketball is just so grand and spectacular. Every game we see has something to do with them. And I think that's incredible. Every game we see, every college game you watch, a lot of them are shooting more threes because of Steph. A lot of these kids now, LeBron James' kid, Dwayne Wade's kid, they're teaming up in high school. They're understanding, take control of your destiny, your path. That's LeBron. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. Guys, appreciate you listening. That's 2 podcasts this week. I'm going to have a couple more probably this week. I want to see how things go with the Antonio Brown situation. I think that Raiders situation is just an absolute mess. Absolute mess. I don't think it's a very well franchise at all, and I think every day there's a storyline, so I'm going to wait a little bit on that. And I also want to see what happens with the Zeke and Dak situation with Dallas, as well as the preseason starting to wrap up. So once we start to make that transition into the NFL season, I can finally get an idea of what's going on. Like, I think Jimmy G and the 49ers and the Jets will double their wins. That's assuming Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy. Wasn't impressed with this preseason game, obviously. He did not have a good preseason game. But I try not to take too much away from it. There's some you can take away from. There's some you can't. So I'm not trying to be a prisoner of the moment. I'm going to let things kind of, all the storylines settle down. Then we're going to transition to the NFL here shortly. This podcast is available on any podcast platform. Thank you for listening. Download and subscribe to Max Van Auken Podcast. Also on YouTube, if you want to watch it, Max Van Auken. Next episode, I'm probably going to answer some questions, so please reach out to me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. I'm on there, Max Van Auken, and I'm going to answer some of your questions. I appreciate you guys listening, and like always, peace.